Good morning. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Invicta Pro Diver reference 8926. I paid £87 for this watch and I bought the watch from Amazon. So the Invicta Pro Diver 40mm that we're looking at here is clearly an homage to the Rolex Submariner because it has a 40mm case. But as you can see, it doesn't have a Submariner bezel. It has an homage to the Omega Seamaster's bezel. So interesting piece because it's very confused. It's neither an homage to the Submariner 16610 nor is it an homage to the Omega Seamaster. It's really a hybrid of the two. So firstly, let's look at the watch box and then I will talk you through the other items that come with the Invicta Pro Diver. So the Invicta Pro Diver comes in this abhorrent bright yellow watch box. It's coated in a vinyl plastic, and as you can see on the front of the watch box it has the Invicta brand logo in large silver lettering. Personally, I dislike the bright yellow colour of it, and I also dislike the contrast of the large silver letters of the Invicta brand logo. Looking at the watch box objectively, yes, it is finished to an acceptable standard in this yellow vinyl coating. And bearing in mind that this is a low tier price point piece at only £87, the watch box is acceptable, bearing in mind the price of the watch. So the lid of the watch box is hinged and the interior of the watch box is fully lined with a felt fabric material. The watch itself sits on a padded pillow cushion as one would expect. So the interior is fully lined and it is finished to an acceptable standard. Although I personally dislike the yellow and the silver branding, I'm sure that some collectors would actually find this to be very aesthetically pleasing. So I'll talk you through the other items that come with the Invicta Pro Diver and then I'll review the watch in detail. One also gets this plastic tag which is branded with the Invicta brand logo and also the Invicta Wing brand logo. On the reverse it has the QR code for the Invicta Pro Diver reference 8926. So one can scan the QR code with one's smartphone and that will upload the data of the specification and also the owner's instruction manual for the piece. One also gets this limited warranty and instruction information. It's an owner's manual. It's very basic. It doesn't go into any great detail about how to operate the movement in the watch, but it is a useful read if you're unfamiliar with automatic movements such as the Seiko NH35A, which is used in this Invicta Pro Diver. Now, one also gets two cards with the watch. So this card is the warranty card and it invites the collector to go on the Invicta website, invictawarranty.com, register your contact details and also the details of the watch you've purchased, such as this Invicta 8926 Pro Diver, and that will effectively extend the 2-year international warranty to 3 years, so you get an extra 1-year warranty by registering your details online with Invicta. One also gets this second members card, so one can go on the Invicta website, invictawarranty.com as I've discussed, register one's contact details and that will extend the warranty from 2 years to 3 years as I've discussed. So I don't know why they include these two cards. One is a warranty card and one is a members card because effectively they do the same thing for the collector. One can extend the warranty from 2 years to 3 years. Now, I bought the watch from Amazon, so it's already covered by a 2-year international guarantee via Amazon. But if you buy the watch online from another retailer or alternatively Invicta directly, one can avail of that extension of the warranty from 2 years to 3 years. So with regards to specification of this 8926 Pro Diver, it's a 40mm case. It has a lug-to-lug measurement of 48mm and it has a thickness of 13mm. The lug width is 20mm and the oyster style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lug down to 18mm at the flip lock clasp. The weight of the watch on this oyster style bracelet is 152 grams. So it's a light piece, bearing in mind it's a 40mm case with an oyster style bracelet. Usually one would expect a 40mm piece with a solid oyster bracelet to weigh more than 152 grams. Now that to me is a red flag because it immediately indicates that the weight, the quality of the bracelet must be poor quality. It doesn't have heft because if this was a solid end-link bracelet and it had a solid milled clasp in the flip-lock clasp, it would significantly increase the heft of the watch from 150 to closer to 200 grams of heft. So it really does give me a red flag feeling. I think there's something wrong, and that is really borne out when one feels the lightweight hollow end links and also the pressed metal clasp and also the light links in the Oyster bracelet. They feel very cheap and rattly. So with regards to the rest of the specification, this watch is automatic. It uses the Seiko NH35A. So it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. Now, Seiko produced the NH35A in two plants. They have a plant in Japan and they also have a plant in Malaysia. This is the Malaysian version. Now, the rotor is engraved with Malaysia, and Invicta have covered this up by sticking on a yellow plastic decal over the Malaysia engraving on the rotor, and it says Invicta Watch Group, and it's branded as if it was an Invicta movement with an Invicta rotor, but in fact it's just covering up the fact that this is a Malaysian movement. So where is this Pro Diver made? Well, it's made in China, and then they case the Malaysian Seiko NH35A movement in China. So they're buying the movements from Seiko in Malaysia, then they case the movement into the watch in China, and then the watches are exported globally via Invicta. Now, with regards to the rest of the specification, it has 120 click unidirectional bezel. The crystal in the front of the piece is mineral crystal. It has a Cyclops magnifier applied over the date complication at 3 o'clock. The reverse, it has a screw down exhibition case back, which is made from stainless steel, and it's glazed with mineral crystal. So mineral crystal in the front, mineral crystal in the exhibition case back. Now these are two clear cost cutting measures. It's a disappointment not to see the use of Hardlex, which is used by Seiko, or alternatively the more expensive option of sapphire crystal. Hardlex and sapphire crystal are more scratch resistant than mineral crystal. So it's really a clear cost cutting measure that Invicta has used to use mineral crystal, because it just isn't as scratch resistant as Hardlex or sapphire crystal respectively. So disappointment. Now, with regards to the rest of the specification, I'll talk you through the NH35A. The Seiko NH35A is made in Malaysia, as I've discussed. It has 24 joules. It has a beat rate of 21,600 vibrations per hour. It has a 40-hour power reserve, and it has hand winding and hacking. So it does have the advantage over the 7S26, which was used in Seiko 5s and also the SKX007. The 7S26 didn't have hand winding and hacking. So the NH35A is a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement, and it is good that it has hand winding and hacking. So what is the negative of the movement? Well, it has relatively poor accuracy. The stated accuracy of the NH35A is minus 20 seconds to plus 40 seconds per day. And this one is running at plus 20 seconds per day, which is within those limits of minus 20 to plus 40, but it's nothing special. So I would describe the NH35A as being a reliable movement. It's durable, but it's not particularly accurate. Now, it's clear that Invicta have used a Seiko movement to try and gain credibility for the Chinese-made Pro Diver. If they used their own Chinese-made movement, obviously the watch wouldn't be as attractive at £87, but by using a Seiko movement, it obviously boosts the credibility of the watch, and they can use it in their marketing, because it is a major selling point using a Seiko movement. Now, however, they have kept the fact that it's made in Malaysia very subtle. So I'm just going to open the bracelet and I'm going to show you how subtle that is. If you look very closely at the screw down exhibition case back, above where it says stainless steel, it's actually difficult to show you because the bracelet gets in the way, but just above stainless steel, in very, very small text, it's engraved with Japan movement assembled in Malaysia, just above the word steel. And I'll show you the other side and you might be able to see it better. But it's done so small, it's almost impossible to read due to the reflection of the exhibition case back. But just above the word stainless steel, it has that engraved. So they're using that as a disclaimer because it's clearly not a Japanese-made Seiko movement. The NH35A used in this Invicta Pro Diver is Malaysian-made. So the disclaimer gets around that by saying Japan movement assembled in Malaysia, but they've engraved it very small above the word steel, so collectors will easily miss it. And the other thing they've done is they've stuck on this yellow decal onto the rotor, because the rotor also has Malaysia engraved on it, and that's a giveaway that this isn't a Japanese made Seiko NH35A. So they're not being deceitful, they are disclosing, albeit in very small letters engraved on the exhibition caseback, that this is a Malaysian movement. Now naturally, if they advertise this watch as a Chinese watch with a Malaysian movement, it wouldn't sell as well as saying that this is an Invicta Pro diver using a genuine Seiko movement. A lot of collectors would automatically assume that the movement must be made in Japan because it is made by Seiko, and they wouldn't consider it to be made in Malaysia. But that's the reality. So with regards to the rest of the watch, I think it's over branded. If you look at the left-hand flank, it has the Invicta brand engraved in large letters on the left-hand flank, and I really dislike that. I think it's over-branding to engrave a watch's branding on the left-hand flank. Every single link, I'll open the bracelet and show you this because it's worth seeing. Every single link, the centre links in the bracelet, are also branded with Invicta. And that's on both sides of the bracelet. As you can see, it has Invicta engraved. Every single centre link. So that's more over branding. The flip-lock clasp also has Invicta engraved with the Invicta wings. So again, that's more branding. It has the Invicta brand logo on the screw-down crown, as one would expect. The Invicta with the Invicta winged logo on the dial at the 12 o'clock, underneath the 12 o'clock index. Even the counterweight of this second hand uses the Invicta wings of their branding. So I think the watch is completely over branded. I think it's unnecessary to have the Invicta on the left hand flank, and every single centre link in the bracelet, on the flip-lock clasp, the crown, and even on the screw-down exhibition case back, it also says Invicta engraved again. So really, this watch is completely over branded, and another place that it says Invicta is Invicta Watch Group on the yellow decal, which is stuck onto the rotor to hide Malaysia. So really, this is the problem with Invicta. They heavily overbrand their watches, and I actually don't find it to be aesthetically pleasing. So with regards to the watch, what are the negatives? Well, this is a watch that has very few positives, but it has many negatives. Now, the one thing I want to bring to your attention is one of the most disappointing aspects, and it's the bezel execution. As you can see, there are no teeth on the bezel. They've copied the Omega Seamaster bezel, and it's actually very difficult to grip. The purpose of a bezel is to time dives. So the teeth on the bezel are meant to make it easy to grip, either when the diver is wearing gloves or alternatively when the diver has wet hands, because wet hands and gloved hands are slippery. And I can't grip it wearing this glove. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the glove off so that I can actually show you the poor execution of the bezel, because I can't actually turn it wearing a gloved hand. Right, so this is the bezel. Now it's aligned. The triangle and lume pip at 12 o'clock are aligned with the 12 o'clock index on the dial. But look at the backlash. Now this is a 120 click unidirectional bezel, and as you can see, there is 1 to 2 clicks of clockwise backlash. So when one rotates the bezel, it's very difficult to grip using one's index finger and thumb, because there's no teeth on the edge of the bezel as one would expect with a dive watch. So very difficult, very slippery to grip, and I have dry fingers. I haven't got a wet hand, and I'm not wearing a rubber glove, for example, so I'm not wearing a wetsuit glove. So the purpose of a bezel is to be easily turned when the hand is gloved or it's wet and slippery. So bearing in mind, if it's difficult to grip with dry fingers, imagine how difficult or impossible it's going to be when one's hand's wet. So from a functional perspective, it's not very practical, this design of having these flats which are machined onto the Omega Seamaster style bezel. So dreadful backlash, as you can see, looking at the lume pip. There's 1 to 2 clicks. So it's a very sloppy fit. Now it does align correctly when one brings the triangle on the bezel insert up to the 12 o'clock index on the dial, as you can see. So disappointing bezel action, very difficult to grip, and also too much backlash. It's a quality control issue, and it's also a build quality issue that Invicta should really resolve. I think it's unacceptable at any price point to have those kind of defects. So just bear with me, I'm going to put my glove back on, and then I'll talk you through the other negative aspects of the Invicta Pro Diver. So this is a 200 meter water resistant piece, and it has a screw down exhibition Caseback which provides one effective hermetic seal to 200 meters. The stainless steel screw down exhibition Caseback is finished to an acceptable standard. It's polished to a mirror finish, as is the underside of the case. There is a second effective hermetic seal to 200 meters with the screw down solid stainless steel crown, which is coin edge finished. So in terms of the operation, the execution of the screw down crown, it is acceptable. I wouldn't describe the threading as silky smooth. It actually feels quite stiff, it's quite rough, but it does screw down effectively, and I'm confident that it would provide an effective hermetic seal by compressing the O-ring inside the screw down stainless steel crown. The characteristic of the NH35A Seiko movement is when one unscrews the crown, it pops the crown out, and that hacks the movement. It stops the second hand dead, so one can set the time precisely to the second. And one can also manually wind the NH35A to top up the power reserve to its maximum 40 hours. So the crown execution is not pleasing to use, but it is functional. It does work okay. So with regards to the rest of the watch, the case is polished to an acceptable standard. The flanks of the case are polished to a flawless mirror finish. The tops of the lugs have a grain satin finish. Rather like the 16610 Rolex Submariner, the pre-ceramic, one can see the grains of the metal. It looks like a filed finish, and it is done to an acceptable standard. But however, another negative of the watch is the use of hollow end links. As you can see, the hollow end links are a very poor fit to the case, the lugs. If you look at the profile of the lugs, they project well beyond the folded end links. The end links look like they're made for a different watch. They simply do not follow the profile of the end of the pointed lugs, as you can see. And that's the case on both sides of the watch. If you look, the end links do not seem to fit the case. They don't follow the profile of the pointed tips of the case, the lugs. So very poorly executed hollow end links, a clear cross-cutting measure. Now, with regards to the execution of the bracelet itself, there's a lot of extra play and articulation between the pins that go through the centre links. Every single pin that goes through this bracelet has play in it. So the centre links have a lot of play where the pin goes through it. The pin joins the outer links to the centre links, and as you can see, each one of them has play. And overall, cumulatively, that makes for a very rattly and noisy bracelet because the hollow end links rattle in the case, and also the links themselves, because there's so much play in all of the centre links, it gives the bracelet a rattle. It really does have the feel of a slack bracelet, a bracelet that's old. It's like a Rolex Oyster bracelet on a vintage Rolex Submariner when the bracelet is 30 years old, and it has a lot of play and stretch and wear in the pins, and it has that kind of stretched, rattly feeling. But this is a brand new watch, and that's wholly unacceptable. The other thing I dislike about it is the finishing of the mirror polishing to the centre links. The mirror polishing is actually very badly done. As you can see, the underside of the bracelet is brushed satin finish. So they've only polished the top side of those centre links, and the edges are unpolished. As you can see, the edges of each mirror polished centre link are brushed satin finish. So it's a cost-cutting measure because they haven't finished the edges of the links to the same standard as the exterior. So the mirror polishing is superficial. It's only done on the exterior of the bracelet. It's not done on the edges of the centre links, and it's certainly not done on the underside, which are brushed satin finish. The hollow end links are also badly machined. They're not deburred effectively. The quality of the machining on the end links is very poor. With regards to the flip block clasp, it's engraved with the Invicta brand logo and the Invicta wings, as you can see. Very light gauge of metal. It feels very cheap quality, and I really dislike it. It really does feel like a cost-cutting measure. As one would expect at this £87 price point, it has a pressed metal clasp. It's not solid stainless steel, it's not milled. This simply is metal which has been nickel plated. It's not stainless steel, and as you can see, the quality of the plating is poor, and the actual quality of the polishing of the metal underneath the nickel plating is poor because it's satinized, it's not mirror polished. Usually with a high quality pressed metal clasp, which is solid stainless steel and polished to a mirror finish, one gets a very good reflection, but as you can see, the light's refracted rather than reflected because it's very low quality polishing to the metal, and then it's been badly plated with nickel plating, so it looks satin rather than mirror polished. The gauge of the metal is very lightweight, it feels very cheap, and everything about the clasp itself is poorly executed, the very light gauge of metal. The flanks of the flip lock clasp are polished to a mirror finish, and the exterior is brushed satin finish. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how the watch fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I haven't sized the bracelet, I took the watch out of the box and I've simply put it on my wrist without removing any links. So as one would expect, with a 40mm case that's 13mm thick with a 20mm lug width, the 40mm Invicta Pro Diver does fit my 8-inch wrist very well. And as you can see, the bracelet has no problem fitting my 8-inch wrist. There is in fact a gap I could slide an index finger underneath. So no problem if you have an 8-inch wrist. This watch will fit your wrist without any difficulty. So it does fit the wrist very well, but I really find the Invicta brand logo engraved on the left-hand flank of the case to be abhorrent, because one can see it at all times when one looks at the piece on the wrist, and I really think that spoils the look of the watch. The overbranding of the watch really is something that puts me off the watch. I dislike the mirror polishing to the centre links, I dislike the Invicta branding on the flip lock clasp, the left hand flank of the case, and the overbranding by using the winged logo and also the Invicta branding at 12 o'clock, as well as the winged logo on the counterweight of the second hand. So really, it's a very poor execution in terms of being an homage to the Submariner, or alternatively an homage to the Seamaster because of the bezel used. So lastly, I will give you a Lume test and then I will surmise the piece. So I'm just going to turn the light out and then I will charge up the watch fully using my 100 LED UV torch. So we'll see what the maximum performance is of the Lume on the dial and hands. This is a 100 LED UV torch, so it's going to charge up the Lume to its absolute maximum peak performance. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, the Lume used on the Lume pip on the bezel insert, the Mercedes hands and the applied indices are all green tone. Now immediately the Lume is beginning to fade and fade fast. It didn't glow very brightly initially, but it is now fading very fast to nothing. I would describe the Lume used on the hands, the dial and also the Lume pip on the aluminium bezel insert as being very low quality Lume. It's certainly not as good as Super Luminova or Seiko Lumibright, for example, that's used on Seiko 5s. So this is very poor quality and it's a big disappointment. Even though this watch is a low tier price point piece, it's only £87, I would expect to see better quality Lume. So it's another negative of the watch. So lastly, what do I think of the watch? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So the price point of this Invicta Pro Diver is £87. I don't consider it to be excellent quality, nor do I consider it to be excellent value for the reasons I've outlined. I really think this is a poor quality watch, and I also think it is poor value. If you have a budget of £87 and you're looking for a dive watch, I think the Casio Duro at £53 is a much better option because the build quality and the value of the Casio Duro are both outstanding. If the Casio Duro is not your personal taste and you don't like quartz watches, you want an automatic dive watch, I would also propose the Vostok Amphibia, because one can buy a Vostok Amphibia for £60, and I really think that they are both better quality options. The build quality and also the value of the Vostok Amphibia is superior to this Invicta Pro Diver. So I would say to you, consider the Casio Duro or alternatively the Vostok Amphibia as credible alternatives, and bear in mind that they are both less expensive pieces at £53 and £60 respectively. This watch at £87 is significantly more expensive than those two proposed watches, and I really think that I would prefer to wear personally a Casio Duro or a Vostok Amphibia rather than this Invicta Pro Diver. I really dislike several things about it, but above all else, really the poor performance of the bezel with the backlash, and also the fact it's very difficult to grip, so it's completely impractical. That's one thing really puts me off the watch. I really think that one should not consider this watch. So I cannot recommend it, and I would actually advise you not to purchase this Invicta Pro Diver reference 8926. So I hope you've liked my review of the Invicta Pro Diver. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.